Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another brand new episode of Topic
Thunder.
Here from the Top 10 Show. I am Don Roca.
And I am Matt Nost. This is a show that we do for our patrons. There's a special email address, and they can send in questions and topics, whatever they want us to talk about. We have no idea what it is until we see the email itself.
Yeah.
And is it my turn to start?
I don't remember. I think it might be my turn to start. Or no, maybe it is your turn to start. Go ahead.
All right, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. We'll have to make that decision at some point.
Yes. So the first one comes from Heinrich Winterland.
Okay.
It says, "Hi there, John and Matt. I hope both of you are doing well. My question today mainly concerns football, aka soccer, but can be applied to pretty much any sport. Recently, the Norwegian Football Association has raised the issue of boycotting the 2022 World Cup in Qatar due to human rights issues. My question is, are athletes morally obliged to refuse to participate in a tournament hosted in a country that denies basic human rights? Is it a trophy equally valid if earned through a tournament built on questionable ethics? Apologies in advance for being a downer, but the current World Cup qualifiers have got me asking a lot of questions. Your friend, Heinrich."
His body is a Winterland. All right. So my response to this is, well, if you choose to play for the national team, then you are subject to whatever the national team's football association decides. It does got nothing to do with your morality or your own personal ethics. If you are part of this, then you have to essentially go along with what they decide to do. So if they want to boycott the World Cup, then so be it. But why are you participating in qualifiers then for that World Cup? Because if you're not going to go, why are you wasting everyone's time? That's the question I would ask overall. And I love the Norwegian national team, by the way. I've always been cheered for all the Norway, Denmark, Iceland. I like the Sweden. I kind of enjoy that whole area and cheer for all those teams equally to get in. So for me, that's what it comes down to. So you're not obliged to refuse to participate, certainly, but if you're part of this situation, you really have no choice to it. You can protest all you want, but in the end, the Norwegian Football Association makes the distinction of what's going to happen. And as for the trophy being equally valid if earned through a tournament built on questionable ethics, that's all subjective, because you could argue, well, is the Toronto Raptors NBA championship somehow less valid because the Warriors were hurt? You can argue all those kinds of things overall, but in the end, it's whoever won, and they're the ones who get to walk around and claim to be champions for that particular tournament or that particular trophy. So,
yeah, I think in that vein, the only time I would question it is if a preponderance of players, of key players, decided to sit out and they still put a team out there in the World Cup, just like, oh, well, they weren't at full strength and we all know it. So in like the road they faced a bunch of teams that normally would have had all these individuals who boycotted. So maybe this championship doesn't mean as much, but overall, I agree with you. A championship is a championship is a championship.
Yeah.
Every team faces adversity. Luck plays into it. It is what it is. You can't really denigrate somebody for having accomplished the feat. And I'm thinking in regards to like what you brought up with the NBA.
Yeah.
But it's a valid point. If you have moral issues with it now, why are you in the qualifiers? But should a country, I mean, we're trying to decide if we're going to go to China for the next Winter Olympics as a nation.
True.
And I am not entirely sure. It's, been a long time since political grandstanding, the Olympics has been used for that. And I don't mean grandstanding to belittle the human rights violations there. It's an interesting question. I don't know that there is a right answer.
Well, it's also, Sorry.
Well, just if you believe morally that what they're doing is terrible, and the number of worker deaths and situation there, the working conditions is pretty brutal.
Yeah. But the same thing happened in Brazil. The same thing happened in other tournaments, World Cup tournaments, and other countries, including Norway, have turned a blind eye when they've qualified to some of the unsavory tactics that they've used to get these stadiums built on time, and some of the deaths that have happened as a result. In Brazil, it was exorbitant, the amount of people that died in the efforts to build all those stadiums out so they could do the tournament there.
And moving poor people out of certain areas, or putting up those huge, like on the interstate on one side, if you're heading south to be on the right side because the ocean's on your left, and they just put up huge barriers with
Yeah.
nice pictures on it, but to cover up all the slums as if there isn't a massive problem and we're all just turning a blind eye to it to celebrate these big games when the
Exactly.
amount and disparity of the poverty here is disgusting.
Yeah.
There's anytime there's a huge event like this where they have to build something very specifically for it, there's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
To be, I think people pushing for the Olympics having a few key cities where the infrastructure is already built in, and then going forward, like Los Angeles would be a good spot for it because of the number of venues, the pre-existing public transportation, and they're building that out as well. But to make it a permanent site, so you're not just displacing so many people, having a government like the Summer Olympics was originally projected at like 7.4 billion, and it's now up to 24 or 26.
Yeah.
And the people weren't, happy about spending all that money. And now with the delays, that's one of the reasons they're trying to push for it. Is like, we've already spent 3 times what we budgeted. So there's various pressures there. I don't know. These huge sporting events bring up a lot of moral questions.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, they do bring up a lot of moral questions, Matt, for sure. Because, I mean, a lot of these countries that win these bids, they build these stadiums and then the stadiums sit there unused, or they, the clubs that they try to hook up to these stadiums, the audience is like half full of the stadium or a quarter full of the stadium. They're not clubs that can sustain a full stadium. So in the end, it's a big profit loss for them. So it was nice to have the prestige of doing the World Cup. But as you were speaking and talking about this conversation about having the Olympics in certain cities because the infrastructure is already there to support that, I kind of like that idea for the World Cup as well. Let's set up, in 7 separate continents, let's set up cities that you can do it in. And those are the only cities that get to host the World Cup, unless there's a city that, sprouts a popularity boom and then creates these stadiums already to support the football in their country, then great. They can host the World Cup or bid to host the World Cup. So to me, that's the thing at the end of the day. I like that idea more, that a country or a city rather is already equipped to handle a World Cup rather than being built to handle the World Cup.
Because the bullshit of it is, especially with the IOC, they take on none of the financial costs to build any of this.
Yeah.
So they don't have much skin in the game, and then they get all the corporate sponsorship. That goes, like, I think the city gets 15 or 20%.
Yeah.
And the rest goes to the IOC. Just like, but they didn't outlay the expenses to do this massive thing. So the hope from the city is the exposure, the tourism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So it's just, I don't know. And then the corruption at the top, especially between IOC and FIFA, it's, really blatant. It's not as bad, I guess, as it used to be, but at the same time, doesn't mean it couldn't get back to there once people stopped looking so vigorously.
Well, and I think that's what was funny about everyone going nuts about the Super League, like all these other owners and all these other federations. It was like, you're all fucking corrupt. You're all trying to get money. Yeah. And these, like Everton came out with that statement. Oh, we would never do such a thing. We would never sign up for the bullshit. If you had any kind of prestige, like a Liverpool, like a Manchester City or Manchester United, or even
like Arsenal.
Even, way down there, Arsenal. If they had that kind of prestige, then they would absolutely explore this possibility and possibly have been one of the 6 to sign up. So this whole we are for the people nonsense, it drove me nuts. There's corruption and money up and down this. So, and even to see the presidents of other football federations, the only reason they were pissed is because it's money out of their pocket, not because they have some kind of moral stand that they're making. It's because you're taking money away from them because they like to lie in their pockets.
Well, it also raises the prestige of the team. It increases a new revenue stream that they didn't have before that they can use against them.
Yeah.
It opens up a can of worms.
Okay.
It's a tough question, Heinrich.
There's nothing you could do. You could probably sue as a player to try to force, but it would be impossible. You'd essentially be forcing your federation to force them to field a team for these. It just wouldn't make sense overall. Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next one. Thank you, Henrik. And that's Robert Haley here. He says, greetings, John and Matt. Typing this out after listening to the Fincher episode. And Matt making the claim that we've likely all met serial killers. When my dad was in high school, he worked at a restaurant after school. The day manager at the restaurant was John Wayne Gacy. Holy shit.
Yeah.
They didn't interact much, but ever since I found that as a teen myself, I get chills thinking about it. Have either of you met or know someone who's met an infamous individual such as that? I just imagine replaying those encounters in my head to try and find clues as to the person they were underneath. Robert Bobo Haley. So really interesting question. Matt, thoughts?
Well, I mean, infamous like John Wayne Gacy. No, I have never met. A buddy of mine sat down and shot the shit with OJ.
Oh, wow.
Well, he came out to a show and it was my friend in Dice. And he came up to him at the bar afterwards and sat and talked to him for a while. But you know, my buddy's also, he was more than likely a court jester in a previous life because I've heard him say things to people to their face and they always go, come on, I'm not that bad, am I? And he'll just continue and they'll laugh. And it's an amazing thing. You've never seen anything. I saw this guy, I won't say who he is, but he was walking up and I said to him, I was like, oh, dude, this dude gives me the creeps. And he's just a creepy, scummy dude. But he has a little bit of power in this town. He's like, oh, this dude, he's definitely stood over an unconscious hooker.
Oh, yikes.
Well, no, saying it, just guessing. But he was walking up to say hi to my friend. And my friend said it well within earshot. He was only a few feet away. And he's like, oh, come on, man. That's not me. And then he says a couple of things like, seriously, no, this dude, you're right. He is one of the creepiest guys I've met in Los Angeles. Yeah. And he's just sitting there laughing. And you're like, this is amazing. So I can only imagine what the OJ conversation was like, but that's the biggest I can think of.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever met anybody on the creepy side. I mean, I certainly met creepy people, but I don't know if I've ever met anyone that was famous for being like an unsavory. I mean, no, not really. Yeah, I mean, like, no. I mean, I met David Arquette. Some people feel he's a little weird, but not creepy. And I interviewed Jamie Kennedy, but I liked Jamie, so I didn't feel he was
nice guy.
Weird or creepy. Yeah. So
I've never heard he was creepy.
Yeah. So I don't know that I've ever kind of felt that way about anybody overall. But yeah, I'm trying to remember if I've ever met anybody who was really.
I mean, I can think of two homeless guys that I've met that just looking into their eyes scared the living shit out of me.
Oh shit! Yes, I've had those interactions. For sure in Los Angeles and in DC. Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. Where it's just like, you don't even register as an entity to this person. Like you're really irrelevant, like in a way that you've never conceived of until you look into a person's eyes like that, who just sees you as like, just not even human. Yeah.
Oh, met a guy years and years and years ago. But he walked up and he was just started rambling about the government is flying dead bodies to bury them outside of Las Vegas, but I can't remember for what conspiratorial reason. And he just kept repeating it in different ways over and over again. And I was in a spot where I had to stay there.
Yeah.
So I had to, I mean, he went on for a few minutes and then moved to another friend of mine and continued the conversation and then moved along. And I was like, that dude was... But the scariest, I walked past a homeless guy in Vegas and he looked like if the Crypt Keeper had skin.
Oh, wow.
With a horseshoe mullet, so bald on top. And then it was long, blonde, stringy, like gross, hadn't showered in forever in the back, super thin.
Wow.
So he looked just like the Crypt Keeper with skin. And I was walking past him. You know those escalators that go up to the walkways over the main drag?
Yeah.
He was at the base of one of those by the upside, and you have to walk past him and you see him. And you're like, oh my fucking, like the look in his eyes was beyond crazed. That was probably the scariest human being I've ever seen.
Yeah. I've never had an experience like that with a homeless person, but I've certainly had experience with people in certain bars or clubs where you like have an interaction and you're like, oh my God, this is like, because I mean, I've been in some seedy fucking bars growing up, especially in the military and whatever, and you just kind of end up there because the people you choose as friends at the time, and then you're just like, holy shit, man. Like, and there are people who just have a complete and utter loss of life behind their eyes, and when they talk about stuff, you just like, this, you're actually the energy of evil. Like, I know fucking thanks. Like, I'm I'm out of here with this shit, And so, yeah, I've definitely had that. But the John Wayne Gacy thing is interesting. If you watch that Peacock documentary on him, if Bobo, if you haven't watched it, because I mean, yeah, he was a fully functioning human being. He owned multiple businesses. He was doing well. He was like a member of the Chamber of Commerce in that city.
Yeah.
So he was like a fully functioning. He wasn't sitting around like playing with his, whatever. I mean, he was a fucking, member of society. Upstanding.
Yeah, got a putt course.
Yeah.
Moved to the prison that he was in and got everybody on board with it. He was like a weird little Andy Dufresne.
Yeah. Yeah. Except he was guilty. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Madness. I know that documentary was super interesting.
Yeah. Especially
Sasquatch isn't worth your time, I don't think.
Oh, I haven't watched it. I don't watch those. I'm just like, it's not.
Oh, no, it's about a murder.
Oh, okay. All right.
That is up in Northern California in Humboldt County, Mendocino County, like pot growing area.
Yeah, yeah.
And 3 workers died, and the reporter that was there at the time, he was a guy that would embed himself with like the Hells Angels or the this or the that. Right. So he went to, in the early 90s, a pot growing farm, an illegal one, and worked there for a time. And dude showed up and said 3 migrant workers got killed in a field by a Sasquatch. Because it's Sasquatch country up there, I guess. And the best though, is the first Sasquatch expert they go to, that dude is an expert on nothing. He talks like this, and he's like, hey, yeah, no, so Sasquatch is always like, and you're like, this dude should never have an expert attached to anything. Is he passionate about Sasquatches? Yes. But do I believe he's done any kind of research? I question his methods. But I think the documentary overall was not fine.
Okay. Yeah, we're almost done with this one that's we've gotten on the weekly train for Pray, Obey, Kill that is on HBO Max. It's a
I haven't watched that one.
It's a Swedish documentary about this guy, about this certain section of religious people in Sweden, in this town called Knotby, Knotby, and it's about this guy, this pastor, who like had his wife. He was having an affair with one of the parishioners, and they had brought in this woman who was a young girl, like 20-year-old girl, who was their nanny, and she was receiving these text messages from an unknown source that was telling her to kill this dude's wife and kill the woman that he's having an affair with, the husband of the woman. So one night she kills the dude's wife and shoots the guy. And then they discover that it was in essence, through the court case, they discovered that it was the pastor who was possibly sending these texts. So the girl got away with it and went to a mental hospital. He went to jail for life. But 17 years later, these 2 documentarians are investigating this and finding out more evidence that maybe the nanny never did it and that it was someone else who had done this. And the weird part of it is the pastor's first wife also died under mysterious circumstances in his home. So it's a very, very interesting documentary that you're on multiple sides on as you watch it. So if you wanted to dive into another one, I'd highly recommend it.
Quite possibly.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen The Investigation on HBO Max, that's a damn good one too. That's also a Dutch one or foreign one.
Norwegian. Okay. Another one to check out. I have not seen that one either. Yeah.
That one's more of an acting one because it's about that guy who took that woman in the sub, raped her and dismembered her. It's all about their investigation of how they found that guy. It's so fucking chilling, man. But yeah, there you go. That's life right now.
Yeah, that is life right now. Sadly, I'll probably check one of them out because we're once again short on TV.
Oh shit!
I know you burn through stuff.
Yeah, I really do, man. Yeah,
like the mayor of Easttown. I like that, and I'm thankful it's once a week because otherwise we would have burned through that already.
She won't let me start it. For our new rule now, Matt, because I'm an addict to this stuff. She's like, we wait until there's 3 episodes of a show, then we watch it. So
why?
Because for her, she doesn't like to wait. She's very big on not waiting. So she's like, as long as there's 3 episodes, that way we can dole it out and not feel like we're waiting for another episode. We can take our time through it. So that's her approach to things. So yeah, I have to adjust.
Teach their own. Yeah. Teach their own. I'm assuming she can't call her shot with every show like that.
No,
Because-
not with the show that I want to watch. No.
Yeah, well, I do. We just back up all the TV viewing if you've got
True.
certain priorities and be like, I can't consistently wait for you.
Yeah.
I did it when Game of Thrones, when I was fully, so I watched from the very first episode all the way to the end. I,
Mhm.
didn't miss a week. So once we got married, I was like, I told her, there was already a few seasons in. Like, you can watch this with me, but I am watching this on Sundays. And if you're if you're asleep, if you're busy, if whatever it is, I'm still watching.
Yeah.
I will watch it again with you, but I'm watching when it, as quickly as I can. Or you can catch up. Like, well, it's the only show I've ever done that with where I'm just like, I'm not going to wait. I'm sorry. But everything else, I will happily, it's fine.
What I like though is like we have this thing where like if we can start a show, if I like it or she likes it, and the other person doesn't like it, then we're both good on like you go ahead and finish it, because I have stuff I do at night with my other shows. So I'm in here in the office recording stuff. She's out there watching stuff that I don't, and then sometimes she wants to watch something and I want to watch. So I've set up the office so I can sit here and watch stuff. So it's perfect in that we have that separation because she's into that. The serial killer one, the scorpion or the snake, whatever it is. That's
the serpent.
Yeah, the serpent. I was out after the first episode. She's loving it.
I didn't watch it, but
yeah. So, but yeah. So there you go. All right. Should we do one more here before we wrap up here? Go ahead, brother.
Let's do it. This comes to us from and thank you, Bobo. This comes to us from Nicholas Baldwin. Hey guys, hope you're all well as things start returning to quote unquote normal. Thanks again, Matt, for speaking to my wife and I a couple months ago. No worries.
Oh,
with the Scrubs podcast, I have been revisiting that show. It got me thinking how I watched it through multiple times and at different stages in my life. Each time I connected with different parts. For example, Guy Love is a fraternity man, several different versions of relationships I was in, imposter syndrome, etc. Including now realizing it feels dated and mostly doesn't speak to my life now. Is there any show or movie that is like that for you? One that has meant so much to you for so many different reasons, and did you ever just quote unquote grow out of it? Be well and stay safe. Nick Baldwin.
Good question. And Nick, if you have an eagle eye, I was an extra for I think season 2 or season 3 for a number of episodes on Scrubs. So if you ever go back and revisit it, see if you can catch me in my big fat hair from back then. A show that I used to enjoy. I mean, I guess the Cosby Show. I can say I grew out of the Cosby Show for a number of reasons. I don't go back and I used to watch all those 70s stuffs, but I rarely go back and watch like the Jeffersons or Different Strokes, which really kind of was a lot of what I grew up with. I rarely go back and watch that, or Happy Days, which I used to love as well. So yeah, I've grown out of a lot of shows that I used to watch when I was younger, because I've kind of already solidified pretty much who I am as a person. So those shows were great about like teaching you those experiences, as he said with Scrubs. So I don't usually go back and watch those that much anymore. What about you, Matt?
As far as dated, I think most anything beyond a certain point looks dated. Seinfeld looks dated at this point.
Absolutely does.
Yeah. And I'll be curious as to whether or not it holds up over time.
Yeah.
Not saying it couldn't, but tastes change, and it's a very, anyway, doesn't really matter. Neither here nor there. And I think it's a much rare exception when I go back for TV shows. I kind of watch it and move on because there's so much television. Trying to think. The Office I've seen a couple times. But I don't know if I'll go back and rewatch that anytime soon.
Yeah.
Let's see. What is a good example of that? Something I used to love though and watch all the time and now feels dated.
I don't know. Because
I don't know if it would feel dated to me if I watch it that many times. I'm always going to have love for it.
Yeah. But there is a thing where you go back and you watch something and you're just like, man, I used to enjoy this. How come it doesn't quite feel right? And you can say that about, I think Seinfeld's an excellent thing to bring up, Matt, because some of those jokes there, some of the things they say now in 2021, you wouldn't necessarily be, or some people wouldn't necessarily be 100% cool with, and you go back and watch some of that stuff.
There's
Certainly.
a teenagers react to that I happen to see. I don't really watch react videos, but they were reacting to Seinfeld, and that's why I watched it. And I was like, oh, just it whole, and they found it problematic to say the least. In numerous, the clips that they were shown, and
Right.
even when they missed the intent of what the joke was, they just took it on face value and be like, well, that's offensive for this, that, and the other. And be like, well, actually, it's a joke about that.
Right.
That's the point of it, is making fun of. They showed him one where not that there's anything wrong with that, talking about
Oh yeah.
Jerry and George were being confused for gay, and not that there's anything wrong with that. And kids were like, that's so wrong. Like, and I understand what they mean, but that episode won a GLAAD award that year for being the most progressive and basically talking about the fact that being gay is perfectly fine.
Yeah. Right.
It was award winning in its day, and now 20 some years later, it's problematic. So I'll be curious to see if that one, but at the same time, it's, certain episodes in that I think are timeless, but there are others that are entirely dated to me, and they were kind of within a few years of it coming out.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that.
Let's see. I guess if I watched current Simpsons, I would be sad. Just for what it once was to me. But at the same time, I haven't watched Simpsons religiously in 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like South Park is one that I've kind of grown out of. Like, I enjoyed it when it first started, and obviously the culminating with that movie. But then I just kind of didn't like. It was at the time where I was like, oh, they're saying these things, or it's funny, these things, and they're skewering society in a way. But in the end, you just kind of get tired of it after a while. And so for me, that was kind of it for me. So yeah,
a show runs that long, it's kind of inevitable for a chunk of people. I've got friends that swear by South Park to this day.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. They're just like, you're missing out. There's some really great humor and jokes in this. I know. I just, I think I held on a little bit longer than you, but yeah, I stopped a while ago.
What about Arrested Development? Do you think that still holds up? Do you think that's one you would go back and watch again?
I have. I think it does.
Okay.
But it's also a very specific humor style.
It is.
And I
used to go. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, but
I was just gonna say I haven't seen the newest season.
Yeah. I mean, I used to like New Girl, but I don't know that I would ever go. Like, it was at a time when, like, that kind of stuff of being adorkable was kind of interesting, because I kind of thought Zooey Deschanel was beautiful, and so you watched it and the humor was funny and all of that. But like, that's also around the time where I'm here, in my 30s in LA, and so yeah, I don't know that I would ever go back and watch it. And I was done after the 4th or 5th season, and so it's like, I get it. Oh, yeah, I think it was like 7 or 8. Oh, let me see here. I think. Don't quote me on it just yet. It went from 2011 to 2018. So yeah, 7 seasons. Yeah. So it just kind of it was like, I was like, okay, I get it. I'm kind of moving on from this.
I'm sure the people that watched it in its run and watched it right after, and that's their show.
Yeah.
I saw an episode here or there, but I never, watched the show.
Yeah.
But
interesting.
I know other people that did. I got nothing against the show. I don't know though. That's a tough question because if I have watched it more than once, especially a television show, that's an investment, which means I really like that show.
Right.
So I don't know that I would spend that much time, but who knows?
Yeah.
If I go back and watch Office or something 20 years from now, or British Office, will it still have the same humor and punch for me? Who knows?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're at the 30-minute mark. It's a good place to wrap it up here, Matt, I think. Thanks to everybody who sent in their questions. This is so much fun to hear. Thank you to Nicholas Baldwin for sending in that recent question. Thank you to Bobo. And thank you to Heinrich for sending in their questions. It's always fun to hear what you all think. And this is one of the perks you get when you're a patron of the Top 10. Ladies and gentlemen, please spread the gospel of the Top 10. Get more and more people to come on to be patrons of the show as well. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your friends and neighbors, all of them. $5 and above, you get to send in your comments, thoughts, questions, and we answer it all here on the show. And you never know where we're going to go because we never read them ahead of time. Yeah, Matt.
That's it for this week's show. Follow the show at Top 10 Show or on Instagram at Top 10 Podcast with the number 10 and youtube.com/the Top 10 Podcast with the number 10. And you can follow me anywhere at Matt Nost.
You can follow me at The Rocha Says. And you all take care of yourself. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of Topic
Thunder.